Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you all like it, please like and subscribe, and hope you all enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day. Have to get it just right.
Right.
You know?
So what I have here in my pot is I actually have a mixture of both beeswax and tallow. In the 18th century, pretty much everybody was using tallow candles. The wealthier people would be able to buy beeswax candles, but typically they weren't using them in their everyday lives. They were bringing them out when they had visitors over, people they wanted to impress. So for the most part, we're not seeing wide use of beeswax for candles. On a hot day like today, the tallow that I would normally be using isn't going to set up, so I threw in about 80% beeswax and 20% tallow in order to make these candles. This is also a really good mix if you want to do beeswax candles in a tin mold. That little bit of tallow is just enough to grease it so it can pop out of the mold pretty easily.
Okay. Now, what are the other things that they could use to make candles other than beeswax, or is it strictly just beeswax?
So beeswax, tallow was the most common, but there was another candle making material that they could use, something called spermaceti. So spermaceti is actually a rendered type of fat that comes from the head cavity of a sperm whale. Again, like with the beeswax, this was something expensive, but it did have benefits like the beeswax. It burns a lot cleaner, it doesn't leave stains on your walls, and it also doesn't produce a pretty gnarly smelling kind of aroma that you would get with your tallow candles.
Now, did they ever add anything in addition to it, though? Like, for example, maybe something to get the bugs away, or?
I'm not entirely sure about for pest control, but people could scent their candles. One of the ways they could do this, there is a type of bush that is native to the eastern coast of the United States. It is called the bayberry bush. So the bayberry bush produces these waxy small berries that you can render the wax from, and it has a nice kind of fall-like spicy smell to it. So something similar to cinnamon and nutmeg, right? And it would bloom or it would berry in the fall. And so you would be able to harvest those, and it's part of the reason that we have green candles associated with Christmas time, right?
Okay.
Because of bayberry, especially in the New England area, is where we're seeing a lot of that going on. But there were North Carolina native bayberry bushes.
Or really cut that last piece.
So what I have here is I have my wick that I have wrapped around this stick here, and each wick is going to produce about 2 candles. So I have been dipping it into the wax over and over again. I need about 5 more dips to finish these ones. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. So it's pretty easy. I dip it into the wax and then bring it right back out. If they stick together, when they are cool enough to touch, I can just pull them apart a little bit.
I do have an extra piece, actually, now that I think about it, though, that I could use for demonstrations. That does work out pretty good, then. That's a good idea. Huh. Now, how many dips does it take to make, one particular candle? Like you have here with the setup that you have.
Right. So on a hotter day like this, the wax is actually going to stay warmer longer, which means it's going to be thinner. So it's going to be producing these thin uniform layers like the ones here. So it's going to take a few more dips. So probably between 20 and 25. But on a cooler day, like in the fall when they would have been making these candles, you could have a 15 to 20 dip candle, and it worked just fine for your candle holders.
Okay. Well, that works out. That's pretty darn cool, though.
Mm-hmm.
Any recommendations you'd make for someone that's starting out, though, or doing something like this, or?
So there are a lot of good YouTube resources and
so
things
you
like
start
that
a huge fire
where
there,
you can
and
learn
you let it burn down
different
to coals,
techniques for candle
then we rake
making
them out. That's what
and
shovels
things
for.
like that.
There's like a specialized little
Start
hook thing,
simple.
too. It's like a hockey
All you
stick.
really need is some
Put it
wax,
on
a
the
pot,
top.
and some string,
From then
and
on,
you
it's
can make a
game.
candle.
Essentially,
Okay.
think about your oven.
And what particular string do you use, or
So
is it
this is
just
actually a braided cotton string. So just
So,
3
red
strands
pepper
of
is
cotton
like raw meat.
thread that have been
Something
braided
that's
together
going
in
first.
order to make these whips.
Right. Yep. And you want like that high
And
temperature
you
fire
can
just to
use
make it.
spun or braided.
The other thing that we do
You
is we
can
have to
even
mop it
use the
first.
modern wicks if
And
you
that's
would like. It
because
may not be
actually-
historically
it helps clean
accurate,
the soot off the bottom of the oven.
but some
But more
people
importantly,
prefer
it
the way that
reintroduces
those
moisture
candles
back to it.
burn.
Okay.
Because like when we
Okay.
do it, it's not
Well,
as
that's
bad
pretty
today.
darn cool.
I'm licking my lips. It's kind of weird, but that's how
Huh.
I'm checking. When we do it in the winter,